Hey everyone, welcome to KCU. This week we have a jam-packed show for you, but before we get to that, all of us here are beyond proud to be part of the biggest TV announcement for a conference ever in Canada. Global TV, Canada West, and the N8 Group, the producers of this show, announcing late last week that the Canada West playoffs, including the Canada West Hardy Cup final, will be broadcast coast to coast to coast on Global TV this November. It's a huge win for all of college football in Canada to be in 98.2% of Canadian homes, plus reach to many of our friends along the border states in the US of A. Now, speaking of borderline, it's time for Ryan Sullivan.
That's right, Jimmy. Things kicked off in the RSAQ over the holiday weekend with the biggest rematch of the young season going down at Laval. The Rouge et Or were seeking revenge after being dethroned by the rival Montreal Carabin in the Dunsmore Cup last November at PEPS. Despite being powerhouse teams, the last three meetings between these two have been very, very low-scoring affairs. If you're looking to maybe throw a little wager on this game, take the under. The Carabin's first play from scrimmage up against his own goal line, Gabriel Cousineau goes deep for Regis Sibasu. He makes a sweet grab, however, it results in absolutely nothing. Shift to the second Q, Laval leading 2-1. Hugo Richard connects with Felix Fubo-Lucier. Very next play, Maxime Boutin brings the red and gold inside the Carabin 25 with this 15-yard scamper. 2 plays later, Richard goes airborne with the Superman leap into the end zone. Next series for the Bleu et Blanc, Cousineau looks to go deep. He hits Louis Mateau Normandin, who climbs the ladder and makes the grab. That puts MTL inside the Laval 25, but they fail to put up 6 as Cousineau just about gets picked. We head to the poutine break with Laval up 9-7. Midway through the third now, Red Machine on the march. Richard to Tyrone Pierre. TP shows off his Madden spin move, but, and it's a big but, Richard on the next play gets picked by Frederick Shannon. Move on to the fourth, game tied at 9s. Laval thinks they score a major. Richard hits Pierre, who dances his way out of a tackle, and with moves like Jagger takes it all the way to La Maison. However, the play gets called back to the Montreal 44 due to an illegal block from Laval. Dying seconds of the game now, Laval's Dominic Levesque looks down the barrel of a game-winning 39-yarder. Yup, nails it. Laval escapes with yet another 12-9 win, the second time in the last 3 meetings between these two teams that have ended with that same result. The other score between the two, get this, 13-9. Unbelievable. Be sure to circle October 17th on that calendar because that's when these two meet again, this time in Montreal. And remember, of course, to bet the under. The Vert et Or scored 16 points in the second Q, cruising to a 37-blank whipping of Concordia. Jeremy Rock connected on 77% of his passes, tossing close to 300 yards with 2 majors in the win. The last game in the Q went down at Percival Molson Stadium, where McGill won its first season opener in 15 years while snapping an 11-game regular season losing streak with a 10-3 unbelievable barn burner of a win over Bishops. So with week 1 in the books, it's the Vert et Or on top, joined by the Rouge et Or and McGill. Screenshot this, Redmen fans. It'll be the last time you see your team atop these standings for a very, very long time. In AUS exhibition play, St. FX rallied from down 11-0 in the first Q to beat Mount Allison 29-14, while St. Mary's beat Acadia 14-3.
Back with Gord Randall and Sean Olson. Montreal, Laval, a terrific rivalry because the games are physical and close. Offensively, these games are the poster child for anemia, at least on the scoreboard. Good D, bad O, or a little from column A or a little from column B, Gord.
Well, I don't think that this game was as defensively dominated as the final scoreline would have you believe. In fact, both teams, Laval put up 396 yards of offense, Montreal put up 415, only 2 turnovers. This was one of those rare games where both offenses were moving the ball. They just weren't putting up a lot of points with their drives. We saw a lot of like drive to midfield and punt types of drives. Both these teams absolutely have elite defenses, but it was certainly not as defensive a game as the final scoreline would have us believe.
Really, the over-under has been about 20 between these two teams over the last 4 games. So is pretty football not winning football in the CIS?
Well, I think it depends whose perspective you're talking about. Fans like to see pretty football, coaches like to win. And I think at the end of the day, what you saw in the Laval-Montreal game was winning football. They played the field. I looked at the stats, and Montreal was basically inside their own 5-yard 3 times when they were starting drives, and 8 times inside their own 20. That is how you get lots of yards and not a whole lot of points.
So you saw the exhibition results from the AUS a couple of minutes ago, but what about the AUS, which starts next week? Sully is going to tell you about it.
The Mounties go into the 2015 campaign as the back-to-back champions of the AUS and are riding an incredible 11-game winning streak that dates all the way back to 2013. To say that MTA were the class of the conference would be an understatement. Things will be very much the same for the reigning CIS Coach of the Year, Kelly Jeffrey, who sees his all-star quarterback Brandon Lay return, as does 2014 AUS Rookie of the Year running back Chris Reed. The two will lead an offense that was the tops in the AUS last season. However, defense is where Mount Allison are the scariest. The team allowed just 64 points in 2014, which was hands down tops in the CIS last season. To put it bluntly, expect a return to the Loney Bowl for a 3rd consecutive year for the Mounties. The X-Men narrowly beat Acadia to make it to the Loney Bowl final last year, only to lose to Mount Allison. Quarterback Tavon Cook leads the X offense that ranked 2nd in the conference in 2014. 2 games, home and home with the Mounties, plus an interlock game at Laval will be tough wins for the X-Men should they try and get them. However, St. FX's playoff hopes will hinge on how the team fares in 3 games versus St. Mary's and 2 versus Acadia. The X-Men return some key players in key positions, including 2014 AUS MVP Brian Jones, who led the conference in receptions. Also, running back Tommy Troop. On defense, 8 starters return. They're led by first-team All-Canadian defensive end Jesse St. James and second-team All-Canadian middle linebacker Drew Morris. With that much returning talent, improving on a disappointing 3-5 record last year should be in the cards for Acadia. SMU is putting 2014 behind them after a disconcerting offseason put a black mark on what was already a tough year for the program. However, head coach Perry Marchese feels that he's got depth at the QB position, with third-year pivot Scott Borden battling 3 others for that starting gig. With close to 60 players coming back, a return to the playoffs would be a successful season for this once powerhouse of a program.
Coming up, Lyles rolls with the herd.
The CFL and our partners at Football Canada want to make sure we keep growing, promoting, and investing in a safe game. Football Canada now requires all amateur coaches to be safe contact trained by 2017. By creating a standard of safety for all in our football community, we're making an already great game even better. Make sure your youth coach is safe contact trained, because making a safe game means making a better game.
Opening week in the Canada West, and the defending champions pick up where they left off.
Absolutely. The tables have now turned in the Canada West as the Calgary Dinos' reign over the conference ended last year in the Hardy Cup final when the Manitoba Bison stunned the nation by beating Calgary, whose run of 6 straight Hardy titles came to an abrupt end. The reigning champs kicked off the 2015 campaign the same way they did in 2014, playing on the road in the always tough confines of Griffith Stadium. Like last year, the Herd was looking to start the year with a win over the Prairie Dogs. It was a battle of the flows between QBs Drew Burko and Theo Deezer. Look at those locks, making Jim Mullen jealous. First Huskies possession, and they take a bite. Burko to Mitch Hillis. That's a gain of 41 yards. It leads to a Saski score. Second Q, he fires over the middle for Tevin Godfrey, and T to the G goes in for the TD. Huskies lead grows to 13. Just minutes later, the herd finds some life. Dizar fires toward the end zone. Alex Vitt for the major, and then it was time for the Jamel Lyles show to begin. The rookie takes the rock from his own 52-yard line, and then he puts the Saski defense on blast. Final seconds before the half, Huskies in the red zone, but Burko fires two. I'm not sure who his intended receiver was there. The score remains 24-21 Manitoba. Shift to the fourth. Huskies back in the lead, and Dizar gets lucky. He fires into a pack of dogs, only to find the ball deflect off the defender and right into the arms of Lorenzo Ihanza. Under 2 minutes to go, and Burko gifts another one to the herd. Zach Sangelescu comes out of nowhere for the pick, but Saski's D holds the herd again, and they get the ball back, only to have Burko give it right back again. This one is on the pivot. Who are we kidding? A brutal toss that's easily picked by Cam Teschuk. The Bisons go into Griffiths and tame the Dogs, taking it by 6. This was one game Burko will have to put behind him. The veteran was picked 4 times, twice with the game on the line in the final 2 minutes. For the Bisons, Jamel Lyles, please stand up. The rookie running back had a dynamic start to his CIS career, rushing for 155 yards along with 1 major in his first ever CIS game. UBC, Calgary. Dinos looking for some revenge against their old coach Blake Nill, but it's Nill's T-Birds who get off to a hot start. First cue on Michael O'Connor's first ever CIS pass. He finds Marcus Davis. He sneaks past the secondary, and he goes 102 yards all the way to pay dirt. That is how you start a season. Early second, Mercer Timmis finds some room to the outside. He takes it for the 15-yard scamper. With that score, Timmis ties former Dino Matt Walter as the school's all-time career touchdown record leader with 35. He did not have to wait long for number 36. Late second, Timmis takes the handoff from Andrew Buckley and hurdles his way into the end zone. Midway through the third, Michael Klukas fields a punt on the goal line. UBC can't seem to take him down. In fact, no one can. Klukas turns on the Jets, takes this return 110 yards all the way to the house. That would seal the game for the Dinos as they take down the T-Birds 49-16. Timmis now stands alone atop the Dinos record book as the school's all-time leader with 36 touchdowns. Calgary gets a tough test next week when the team hits the road to face Manitoba in a rematch of last year's Hardy Cup championship. Alberta, Regina. Start things off in the second half. G-Bears down 9. Ed licensed to Ill Nicky. Any Beastie Boys fans out there? No? He hits the pay dirt, and the Rams' lead is cut to 2. Later in the queue, Alberta QB Ben Kopchinski on play action hit Andre Webster. He takes it down to the Rams' 21. Where 3 plays later, Il Nicky finishes off the drive, scoring his second major to put the G-Bears in the lead. Move to the fourth. Rams inside the Alberta red zone. Noah Picton, with loads of time, hits Etley Simon, who takes it in for 6. The Rams fail to score on the 2-point convert, but they take a 1-point lead. Under 3 minutes to go, Picton drops back, fires for Simon, who makes the grab. No, it's out. Simon bobbles the biscuit. Brandon Foster was Johnny on the spot. He picks it off for the G-Bears turnover, and they make the Rams pay. Kopchinski hits a wide-open Tyler Henry, who is the wrong guy to leave that open. Henry takes it all the way to the house. That's your game winner as the G-Bears go into Mosaic and take the Rams by the horns. Il Nicky with a dynamic performance, while on the other side of the stat sheet, Noah Picton lived up to his last name as he was picked tons, 3 tons to be exact, the last one proving to be the dagger for those Golden Bears. It's an Albertan affair on top of the Canada West standings with the Dinos and Golden Bears tied for first, but of course so are the reigning conference champs, the Bisons of Manitoba, which for the record isn't in Alberta in case you were wondering.
Lots of positives to draw from for the Manitoba Bisons. The defensive front took away the run from the Saskatchewan Huskies, and freshman Jamel Lyles led the running stampede, Gord.
You know, BC high school coaches will tell you that Jamel Lyles is a supreme talent, and it's not entirely surprising to see him jump into the CIS level and succeed immediately. The guy's a very mature body type, and he's entering into an established offensive scheme with a veteran offensive line in front of him. It's a great situation for him to succeed, and in week one, he certainly showed off the skills he has.
Sean, what about the growing pains that UBC is going to have to go through? You mentioned it last week about putting two groups together and making them a cohesive unit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of feeling out going on over at that program right now. Players feeling out the coaches, coaching staff figuring out what they have on the field. I think one of the things that has not been talked about enough is that Michael O'Connor is still a freshman quarterback. He has not played a meaningful down of football until this past week, and he's a guy that is going to have to find his way around the nuances of the Canadian game, and it's a very different game than the American game. So that'll be something that will probably be the key to UBC's future for the rest of the season, and whether they're going to be able to piece together a solid season and build off some of the young talent that they have in their program.
A quick note about Regina, Alberta. The Rams, 19 penalties for 205 yards. The group that I saw in their inter-squad game looked fairly disciplined. I did not see that old Ram habit rearing its ugly head. By the way, 145 yards for Alberta, too, a total of 350 yards in penalties. When we return, we will take a look at the games in the OUA. Plus, it's the premiere installment of X's and Olsen. Stick around. Krown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Krown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of University football on Shaw. Krown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time for a new segment, a little something we like to call X's and Olsen with Gord Randall and Sean Olsen. All right, thanks Ryan, and welcome to the inaugural segment of X's and Olsen, where a couple of washed-up old football guys will teach you a little bit more about the game. This week, Coach wants to talk about a popular coverage amongst the Canada West elite, match coverage in the defensive secondary. Now, Coach, I played 15 years in Canadian football, and I learned what match coverage was about 5 minutes ago. For the benefit of our viewers, you want to explain what it is for them?
That sounds good. I'll try to keep it simple. So this is the first play of the game from this past Friday between the University of British Columbia and the University of Calgary. It was a 102-yard touchdown reception for Marcus Davis. Great way to start a football game. Blake Neal knows this coverage very, very well. You can see right here that it is a +1 coverage, meaning you need 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 defenders to cover 4 receivers. And you also need 1, 2, 3 defenders to cover 2 receivers to the weak side of the field. You can see number 7, their free safety, working over to the 4 receiver side, which leaves two defenders here plus an inside linebacker to cover the 2 receivers to the bottom of the field. The problem that they had here was that there's no communication between these 2 players. They're both at the same level. We can run this forward a little bit. And you can see what ends up happening. In a match scheme, you need to have people at different levels so they can communicate and they can come up with a pattern reading type of defense that is allowing people to jump short patterns while playing over top of deep patterns. That didn't happen on this play, and the result is a 102-yard touchdown.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Some fine teachings as always. To Ontario we go now, where Gord Randall warned us just 1 week ago that the Queens versus Ottawa game was going to be the game to watch in the OUA this past weekend. Queens was coming off an impressive win over Carleton to start the season in week 1. No bias, of course, right, Gord? It's not like you played at Queens. You did play at Queens. Yeah, there it is. Would Randall's alma mater be able to make it 2 in a row over teams from our nation's capital? Let's head to Ottawa and find out.
We start in the second Q. Derek Wendell fires a pass to Tristan Bailey, who does a full flip into the end zone for Ottawa's first major of the day. Later in the queue, Wendell does it all himself as he parts the defense with a rushing score of his own from 5 yards out. 1 minute and 19 seconds later, to be exact, Derek Wendell throws a long bomb to Mitchell Baines, a 42-yard touchdown. Only a minute and a half after that, I hope he didn't get up to go use the washroom, Baines scores his second touchdown of the day on a quick slant up the middle. GG's put up 34 points in the second Q alone and open up the season with a big-time win over the Gales. The Varsity Blues improved to 500 with a grinded-out win over the Lancers. Blues second-year running back Devontae Smith put up 118 all-purpose yards in the win. If you're squeamish, you might want to look away from this scoreboard. The Mustangs put up close to 750 yards. Am I reading this right? 750 yards of offense in the shellacking of the Lions. Second-year running back Alex Taylor scored 2 touchdowns on the ground and took a kickoff return 107 yards back to the house to complete the TD hat-trick. Guelph escapes with an 11-point win over Laurier. Nick Parasota with 2 picks in the final quarter, both with the Golden Hawks on the Griffins' doorstep. That sealed the win for Guelph. The Ravens put up close to 500 yards of total offense and a 57-blank stomping of the Warriors. Ravens running back Javari Bennett scored 3 majors in the win. Let's take a look now at your OUA standings board. Ontario now 2 weeks deep in their season, and I see a couple familiar faces near the top. Mac with the bye this week. They will look to go 2-0 when they host Ottawa this weekend.
Oh, we were all primed for a tricolor revival in what was Gord's selection for Game of the Week, Ottawa and Queens. GG's coach Jamie Barresi was pretty secretive about his recruiting class. Was that recruiting class a good complement to what was already on the shelf for Ottawa?
Well, certainly the Ottawa is another team where the heart of their offensive unit returned and they were ready to go from the get-go. Derek Wendell's a stud behind center and Mac Tommy is a stud in the backfield as well. What stood out for me in this game was Queens. With Doug Corby not able to play a late scratch due to an injury, this Queens unit really seemed to be lacking that big playability that they used to take down the Carleton Ravens last week.
I had a discussion with Bison's coach Brian Doby about the non-conference season before the Manitoba-Saskatchewan game. Now, with largely ones versus ones in the first half or first parts of games, Saskatchewan dominated Laurier, who's not in the top 10. UBC up 27-0 on Laval at the half, and Manitoba was up 18-0 on ranked Guelph with first stringers. Doby then told CJWW before the game a little something. Here's the board. We're playing Can West teams, not the OUA. I think that absolutely this is the toughest conference in the country, and it's not even close now. So we'll see where we stand. That's where we stand is talking about going into the Saskatchewan game, Sean. So is that the case in this particular year that Canada West is the toughest conference?
Well, I think it's way too early to figure out who the toughest conference is this year. We played one game that matters, and I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I know that when you're coaching in a conference, you always feel like that conference is the best conference. I'll just go by the stats. In the last 10 Vanier Cups, 6 have been won by Quebec conference teams. Canada West has won 1 Vanier Cup in the last decade. OUA teams have won 3. I think that has got to be the measure for who is the best conference in the country. And I would say that until someone proves it otherwise, the Quebec conference is that top conference.
Gord, the last Vanier Cup win for Canada West was 2007, but what are we experiencing here in 2015?
Well, this is top to bottom the most competitive conference in the country by far. And much like a football team itself, a conference is only as good as the sum of its parts. And in the Canada West, one of the big things I saw in the transition from the OUA to the Canada West myself was that every single week, you better be on top of your game because anybody there can knock you off. It's easy to roll through a conference schedule, winning games by 50 points in 4 out of the 8 weeks, and then go into the national playoffs a little bit fresher, a little bit more ready to compete. I won't debate that the top end of the Canada West is far and above the OUA or the Q, because that's not the case. And I wouldn't even say that's the case with the AUS. But in terms of top to bottom, without a doubt, Canada West is the strongest conference in the country these days.
Now we have all 4 conferences in action this week. Let's check it out before we go to break. Time to pick the games of the week. Coach Olson.
Well, the game I'm going to focus on is the University of Alberta versus the University of Saskatchewan Huskies. Over the last 2 years, the Huskies are 3-0 versus the Golden Bears. This should be a very, very interesting matchup. The Huskies have an opportunity to go 0-2 to start the season, which is never a good sign. And last year on Foot Field, there was a 2-point convert that got the Huskies the win in overtime. So this is a game that I think has a lot on the line, and I expect to see the Huskies come out on top. But I don't know if it's going to be. I don't know if this is going to be a sure thing.
For me, it's Ottawa versus McMaster, and the GGs have an early opportunity. I mean, it sounds crazy in week 2, but this game already has playoff implications where the GGs have an early opportunity to show that they belong with the big boys in the OUA after an impressive showing against Queens last week. On the McMaster side, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game after a bye, and they flexed their muscles in week 1, particularly the vaunted Asher Hastings-Danny Vandervoort connection, who I think put up 3 touchdowns just between the two of them. This should be a really interesting affair, and I expect a lot of fireworks. I'll be glued to this game.
A very good Ryan Sullivan impersonation, Gord. For me, it's Calgary, Manitoba, a game you can see anywhere on the Canada West TV network Friday night. Bison's quarterback Teo Dizar had some luck on some of the ducks he served up in Saskatoon. He's going to have to be much better against the top secondary in Canada. If you can believe this, Calgary's on a 2-game losing streak versus the Herd with that 10-turnover Hardy Cup effort and a loss at the end of the 2014 regular season at IGF. Here is one thing that I am looking for. New offensive coordinator Ryan Sheehan has re-schemed the Dinos, and a way around that Bison's front seven may be to get the ball to senior draft year running back Mercer Timmis as a receiver. Now, just one more thing. Wanted to remind everyone about the Canada West playoffs on Global TV nationally this November. A huge win for college football in the home and native. Just some of your guys' feelings on the games going to global on a national scale. I know as a coach, it's a great recruiting tool.
You know what? It's a fantastic step forward for the sport. It's a great level of football. I think that people that see it on global will be very impressed with the quality of the product. And, you know, it's just another step forward. And I think, hats off to you. I know you were a big part of getting that deal done.
It's a huge step in the right direction for the sport. And I remember 3 years ago watching Coach Olson's Thunderbirds actually in the Hardy Cup from Kingston, Ontario myself. It's a great way to expose the game to a wider audience, and particularly those that aren't necessarily sport-specific people, the people that wouldn't be tuned into TSN on a Saturday afternoon normally, will get some exposure to this game. I think I saw the stat, it's like 99.8% of TV sets in the country will now see CIS football this year. It's hard to see a downside to that equation.
Now, let's get to the game.